me anytime, ask questions, make it a little bit more interactive. I do have a lot in common with yourself. I didn't realize that until I came here. But, one, for example, is that I actually came to this building, went to this school. So I graduated in 1986 as a BCom student. You know, similar path to what many of you are going through. I didn't realize that this was going to be a dominantly Chinese group. My ethnic background is also Chinese. My parents came here many years ago. Actually, my great-grandfather came here and was part of the railroad building. And we went through the typical working in the laundromats, the Chinese restaurants. I was busboy, waiter, and I did all those things and then went through school. When I finished school, and I think it's common over here still too, a lot of people go through a CA career, and that's what I did. There were some other alternatives, but that was common there. And I have a daughter. She went to AVI. She's a little different. Good for her. She's in marketing, for example. She works for Nike, we mentioned earlier, and it has taken a different path. And, you know, there's a couple of choices. The accounting profession is going through quite a few changes. I'm actually not that up to date on. There's CA, CMA, CGA, and I think it's a good path if you want to think about being in accounting or going into the business world. It's a great stepping stone. It's a nice transition when you go into a CA firm versus directly into, let's say, like a Nike or some other company. It's almost like a continuation of your education. So when I went from U of T to, that time it was called Schwab, so it's part of the Deloitte's group. And, you get more training. You're entering different businesses. I got to see stockbrokers, manufacturers, not-for-profits. So you get a wide breadth, and you do have good mentors. You do have good training, especially with the bigger firms. They will show you everything from stuff you would see, in your textbooks to some more practical things like documents and tools to use to get things done. So I think with the CA, it gave me that breadth, and I think it's a good avenue. It's a good avenue. Some of the other accounting venues, they're more on your own. Okay. Most of my career after that, I went to a company called Ingram Micro, and this is back earlier in about the 1990 when the computers were booming. So, some of it was luck, and one of the suggestions I would have is to think about your career further out and as far out as you can. Think about where you want to be at the end and move backwards and plan your career. You do more career planning than I did. I was more lucky than well planned. And since then, I think a key point and a key theme that Jim mentioned is about learning. You're in a great school. You're learning lots of stuff, and I think you continue and should continue to learn until it's all over, basically. Okay, so like one of the things is I try to learn from my mistakes. So as an example, I have a strategic plan, a personal strategic plan for myself in terms of what's important to me. I've been doing it for about 10 years. Okay, after kind of just almost like bumbling along or moving along. The CA firm was part of it too. Coming to this school, I really didn't have much of a business understanding background where I was going. It was a safe bet, so I went through and I did my CA. And then even at Ingram was kind of luck, actually going into the IT industry. A light year for us was when we grew 50%, okay, at the beginning. It was very busy, very hectic, and it was very chaotic. It wasn't anything like textbooks. I remember my first, it's a fascinating trip where, first day my boss actually gave me the key and the security code. And first weekend I was in, helping me set up the computer was a friend of mine. His name's Kevin Murray now. He's CEO at Synnex, a $10 billion plus company. And we were there putting up this computer. I was sitting in my boss's secretary's desk. That's how we kind of started off. And it was just a very rapid ride. So we went from, it was like 75 million to over 2 billion in Canada. And the company's income was about $35 billion. And we moved many locations because the growth was so rapid at that time. We did about 5 different locations. And the way at that time was we were adding vendors to distribution. People like Microsoft, Cisco were vendors being added, and then we were selling at that. Through that business, we were selling to resellers, and they'll range from people like a Compugen to Best Buy. We were a middleman in this process. And I went in as assistant controller, and I moved up, over the years through the controllership route to vice president, CFO for the Canadian operations. And in that process, we deal with the typical things you think about in finance. It's everything from strategic plans to understanding what's the competitive environment, looking at potential acquisitions, to building your financial forecasts for 5 years out, to short-term plans, budgets, and then your typical reporting, controls for big issue. And depending on the type of business you're in a distributor, the asset management side is quite important. The amount of inventory you have, managing that level, inventory obsolescence, and other controls like the whole accounts receivable area. You mentioned we've got the bank over here. Even Ingram itself, as an operating company, we had about $500 million out in loans. It was trade credit, so it's not secured, or typically it's not secured. But it's a very exciting type of operating business. I kind of got lucky, and because it was growing so fast, I got a lot of international. I did 5 international assignments. They range from a week of balance sheet reviews in Europe to I did also a year in Shanghai. And I don't speak Mandarin either. But it was exciting work, and a lot of it was driven because the industry was growing so fast, and the business model was similar around the world. So you go out there, they're generally in trouble, they're turnaround assignments. It's very hectic, it's very busy. It's also very exciting when you do international assignments. You get to meet a lot of keen, very talented people. So you get, because you're working with different people, different cultures, I think you grow more, you grow faster. It was a bit of luck. Okay? I do think, though, to plan your career, you can have more. You can have more travel, you can have more international assignments. I think it's great. It's a great vehicle to learn. When I worked in China or Singapore and a lot of these places, I brought my family, my kids, and we were out there for a while, a month or so, and it's great exposure. And like most companies, they go through a lot, and I left England as part of a restructuring. So it's a lesson to be learned there too. After a long period of time, management changes. So I'm out, and good thing for myself. One of the things that was important was really personal finance. Okay, and it was helpful that I did know a lot, and I did do a lot of work around personal finance. So it was fairly comfortable. So when you're out of a job, like in my case. You're prepared for it, and I think that's an important part. It's generally not taught in school, but very important in your own life, in terms of the opportunities and dealing with adversity. Because sometimes you're up and sometimes you're down. In the best cases over there, I had 150 people reporting in. You're in high demand to nothing. I've also broadened out my career after that. I've worked in a family office, which is also related to personal finance. We were an ultra-high net worth family office. We had a venture capital fund, private equity fund, and a lot of money in the public equity markets. So I helped them manage that part. I've also worked for a government agency, Ontario Lottery and Gaming Corporation. And they're quite different because they're large, and they were in the press a lot. It's much more bureaucratic. It's a different type of work than the private sector. I was responsible for financial planning and analysis. So we would look at business cases and look at building, as an example, Casino Windsor. We looked at the business case for that, and there's